Now, in this first method of superposition, it is simply extension of the design of column under uniaxial bending, because you need to design the column for both the movements MUX and MUY separately. First, you will design it for PU and MUX, consulting the pictures drawn for columns under uniaxial bending with various gammas and FC prime and Fy they are available. So you will select the picture relevant to your column cross section, gamma, FC prime and Fy, and as in your SI edition reference book, you will get pictures with steel present uniformly on four faces. So you may consult that picture, and then you may, for example, once you check PU and MUX, suppose you get 2% steel. Then again you will design this column for PU and MUY. If your column selected is square, your gamma will be same along x-axis, along y-axis. But if it will be rectangular, then MUX and MUY will get a different gamma, because along x-axis dimension B and along y-axis dimension H of the column will have a different gamma once you will calculate the ratio of the center to center distance between the farthest layers divided by the corresponding gross dimension of the column. You will get gamma X and gamma Y. But for square column, gamma X and gamma Y are same. So you will consult the same picture first for PU and MUX and then for PU and MUY. Suppose you get 2% for PU and MUX and you get 1% for PU and MUY, so you will add them up. So finally you will sketch the column for 3% steel. So it means you are assuming that both demands are to be taken individually by the steel about either axis, and the steel what is calculated about one axis movement demand will be simply added up in the steel calculated for the load movement demand about the orthogonal axis. But you have understanding that the steel which will be present for taking movement resistance about one axis will also contribute for the movement about other axis. But in this method of superposition, we are not conceding its contribution about other axes, so it is little uneconomic but safe and conservative and simple to apply, because just uniaxially loaded column design will be repeated twice. Then the next method, which is quite
Excuse me, sir.
popular and yes, yes, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Your voice is not clear. Please repeat.
Yes, sir. I think my voice is not clear because of the network
Now,
connection is slow
now,
here in Afghanistan. I'm here in Afghanistan, so maybe the internet will not work in coming minutes for me. So please consider my attendance, sir.
sure. Obviously, when you log in or log out, your presence is recorded. So no, don't worry. So once you log in, and even due to fluctuation, power fluctuation or internet issue, you drop your call, but your time is recorded, and I will consider all of you present once you log in or log out, and again log in and log out. You keep on doing this because of your network issues. So we are going to consider this,
Yes, sir.
you
I
can say,
already I'm
shortcoming.
trying to quit and to stay in lecture. Already I'm trying that. Thank you, sir.
But for your convenience, we are uploading the recorded videos on MS Team as well. So you can
Yes,
review
sir. I
them
understand. Thank you for thank you.
Right. So now I will discuss on slide number 18 the column under biaxial bending, but using one approximate method, which is equivalent uniaxial eccentricity method. So very useful method to design the column directly. So the idea is that biaxial eccentricities Ex and Ey are replaced by an equivalent uniaxial eccentricity E naught x, and in some cases maybe E naught y, and the column is designed for this equivalent uniaxial bending, which then will be load on the column multiplied by that calculated equivalent uniaxial eccentricity. So it may be P nominal load into E naught x or nominal load into E naught y. So depending on that equivalent uniaxial eccentricity you have calculated along x-axis or along y-axis. So rather than nominal, for design you obviously will be using ultimate. So Pu and Pu into E naught x will give you the ultimate demand as per USD, ultimate strength design. We will be considering ultimate axial load and ultimate uniaxial movement either about x-axis or about y-axis. So on this slide, we are developing equation for E naught x, the same one you can develop for E naught y. When E naught x will be applicable, it is mentioned here that if eccentricity along x-axis divided by the corresponding column dimension b along x-axis is greater than or at least equal to the eccentricity along y-axis divided by the corresponding column dimension h. So if this condition is fulfilled, then you will be using E naught x as the equivalent uniaxial. It is actually exaggerated. Your actual eccentricity Ex will be exaggerated by this second component summation of Ex plus alpha times Ey over h into b. Now what this Ey over h into b is, look at this equation Ex over b greater than Ey over h. If I keep Ex on left hand side and I take b as numerator, I cross multiply it, it will become numerator on the right hand side. So it will be then Ex will be Ey over h into b. So that is placed over here, Ey over h into b. And that is also multiplied with alpha. And this second component is then added up in the first component to get exaggerated equivalent uniaxial eccentricity. If suppose this is not greater than Ey over h, then vice versa will hold. Then you will say it is E naught y, and here it will be Ey, and then you will put here taking Ey as it was earlier as Ex, and you will take h as the numerator on the left hand side, and it will become Ex over b into h. Over here then it will become x, and it will become then over here h. So vice versa you can also calculate that rather than E naught over x, if this condition is not fulfilled, then it means controlling eccentricity will be E naught y, and corresponding value you can calculate by summing up Ey plus alpha times Ex over b into h. So remember that if your column is square, then b and h are same. So it will be only then Ex greater than EY or EY greater than EX, and in this equation H over B will cancel each other because column is square, so you will get EX plus alpha EY or EY plus alpha EX. So you can rewrite these equations particularly for square column where B and H are same. So in this particular equation, if it is governing and your EX is greater than EY over H, then E naught X you will calculate, and in this equation now alpha is one coefficient which is multiplied with EY over H into B, and this alpha you can calculate from the equations given underneath for ultimate load demand which you will get from your analysis for design problem. PU divided by the gross capacity of the column, which is gross capacity calculated considering concrete only. So FC prime into area gross of the column. If this ratio of your column under investigation is less than 0.4 or maximum equal to 0.4, then this alpha will be applicable. This equation and this result of this equation should not be less than 0.6. So it either equal to or greater than 0.6 is recommended. 60% you may say that 0.6 into this second component. However, if this PU or FC prime over AG is not less than or equal to 0.4, then the lower equation will become applicable, and then alpha you will calculate from this, and this equation also recommends that your alpha should not be less than 0.5, 50%. So you need to calculate alpha knowing PU and your gross area of the column and concrete balance. Alpha is decided, that this exaggerated eccentricity E naught X will be calculated. So, here, are you listening my voice or screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Right. So once you get this exaggerated eccentricity, you can use it for multiplication with the ultimate axial load to get equivalent uniaxial eccentricity based movement. Now it means you will have PU and PU into E naught X as MU naught Y. So use this movement and axial force and consult the design aids available for short columns under uniaxial bending. Select them based on your gamma, FC prime and Fy. However, there are certain restrictions here which must be kept in mind. Restrictions are, first one, that this equivalent uniaxial eccentricity method is applicable for columns with geometry square, preferable. If not square and it is rectangular, then the ratio between longer over shorter side should not be more than 2, or shorter over longer side should not be less than 0.5. So reciprocal of 2 is 0.5. So it is very much safe and give useful results when column is either square, or if rectangular, then not to larger degree. Secondly, the restriction is that you need to put the steel on 4 faces. So once you have converted the eccentricities into equivalent uniaxial, it is just for the purpose of applying the flow chart and to get that uniaxial movement which can be used to get the steel, and that steel once will be placed on 4 faces can handle the biaxial movement safely. So don't forget that once you get the area steel, don't put it on 2 faces only. Place them on 4 faces uniformly spaced. So this is important, and I think this condition is also important for all the columns under biaxial bending, that you need to place the steel uniformly on 4 faces, because you never know about which axis moment demand will be considered, and you must have steel on 4 faces to handle the load as well as biaxial movements. So it is further stated in third paragraph, which I earlier explained, that if Ex over B is not greater than Ey over H, then either axes may be interchanged. So make X as Y and Y X X. Ex becomes Ey and vice versa. Or you may write equation for E naught Y. Just uh, you need to swap X with Y in your equations, and you will still get equivalent uniaxial eccentricity, but then it will be E naught Y. So Pu into E naught Y. And later on, you obviously need to put the steel on 4 faces. So this is important. And also there is one more important point, that when you are working on design aids and you want to get for equivalent uniaxial movement and load the relevant picture, don't consult a picture with steel on 2 faces only. Although in our case, in SI edition available pictures, we have no such picture in which steel is present on 2 faces only. In SPS system, in McGregor, Nielsen pictures in which steel is present on 2 faces only. But here it is not recommended to consult a picture with the steel present on 2 faces only, because we are actually working on a column under biaxial bending. And for biaxial bended columns, steel present on 4 faces will be more safe to be considered. So when you are working on column under biaxial bending, always look for that picture in which steel is present on 4 faces and get its corresponding reinforcement ratio, which you will apply for your design purpose. Then after we have some solved problems in our slide, which I will solve today for your practice purpose. So then you will get idea how to apply both of them, method of superposition or equivalent uniaxial eccentricity. And now the next approximate method is proposed by Bressler and named as Bressler reciprocal load method. So as the name indicates, it is reciprocal load method. So we will consult the interaction surface defined by reciprocal of the load and eccentricities. In my previous lecture, I have shown you on one slide 3 different interaction surfaces, and out of them, one was drawn between reciprocal of the load and eccentricity. So that surface will be used to design the column by Bressler reciprocal load method. Now, let me first show you that picture, which I remember is on slide number 4. Let me go to that slide first. Now here, you will see on slide number 4 that this interaction surface in diagram drawn in first quadrant, Ex positive, Ey positive, and reciprocal of the load, that will be used for this Bressler reciprocal load method. And in this surface, we will locate a plane segment. And for that plane segment, the equation can be described as the reciprocal of the load when only eccentricity x is present plus reciprocal of the load when only eccentricity y is present minus reciprocal of the axial capacity of the column. Once this right hand side will be calculated, we will get reciprocal of the biaxial capacity of the column. So this equation geometrically we can prove by locating a plane segment on that interaction surface, and that plane segment actually is the segment on which a point located as a result of summation of reciprocal of the loads of the uniaxial load capacities minus reciprocal of the axial capacity will result into the biaxial reciprocal capacity of the column. And when I take its reciprocal again, it will give me biaxial load capacity of the column. So this approximate method utilizes the interaction surface drawn between reciprocal load and eccentricities. Since we are working on ultimate stand design, so rather than nominal, we will put capacity reduction factor with nominal to get ultimate axial capacities under uniaxial bending, Pnx and Pny, and then ultimate axial capacity when no eccentricity is present. It is explained as if Pni, which was on the left hand side, is approximate value of the ultimate load in biaxial bending, having eccentricities both present, Ex and Ey. Then Pnx is the nominal load when only Ex is present, and Pny is the nominal load when only Ey is present, and P naught is the nominal load when no eccentricity is present and column is concentrically loaded. If we have these components, then the following expression can be used, and as a result, we can get the biaxial capacity of the column. Here, one question will arise that when you are only applying phi and with only application of phi, some columns which are very close to vertical axis, the demand with less eccentricity and more axial force, SCI code limits us that even when you have minimum eccentricity, you further have to reduce the capacity to 20% or 15% depending on whether the column is tied column or spiral column. So once you are using this method and you get axial capacity, which actually will be biaxial capacity, PNI, you will be getting phi PNI, it means ultimate biaxial capacity. If that capacity will exceed 0.85 PN naught for tied or 0.85 phi PN naught for spiral, you need to reduce it to 0.8 or 0.85. You can't exceed it because ACI limits us for safety that this minimum eccentricity reduction should also be applied. So this will remain valid for the columns under biaxial bending and with the eccentricities in magnitude which is less than minimum eccentricity. You will also realize that this method is not a direct design method. This method will give you ultimate axial load under biaxial bending, and that load you will compare with your demand. So it means you need to first sketch a column, detail it, calculate its biaxial capacity, and then compare it with the PU. If your resistance comes out to be greater than demand, you will say column is safe. If your resistance comes out to be less than demand, you will have to repeat your analysis until you get either capacity equal to your demand or greater than that. In case if the demand gets bigger to a larger degree, even then you need to revise for economical design. So it is actually a review technique, not a direct design technique. So its detail is available in the book by Arthur H. Nilsson, 14th edition, book by Nilsson. It is available on PDF drive. You can download it for better understanding of this Bressler reciprocal load method. So I copied these slides and text from your concrete structure by Z.A. Siddiqui. So for more understanding, if you need to know in depth the development of this method, so you may consult that reference book. So briefly in 2 slides, this method is explained here, and there are design problems which I will explain. And then I will also explain few more points or limitations of this method. Then comes another approximate method, load contour method, also is popular, and its detail is also available in book by Nilsson. And this method also is a review method. So you need to decide a column with reinforcement ratio, sketch it, gamma, fc prime and fy, calculate them, decide them, and then calculate its capacity, and then compare whether your required check is okay or not okay. If okay, then your column is safe against that demand. Otherwise, you need to revise the column. So first you need to sketch and select the reinforcement ratio. Unlike equivalent uni-axial eccentricity method or method of superposition, where you get steel finally rather than you select it beforehand and check its applicability or its suitability. So in this way, this is another review technique. It is explained as if the interaction surface is horizontally sliced at a particular load level, as is done in this figure on slide number 23, that this was the load interaction surface between load and biaxial movements at one particular load level. One slice is taken and is separately drawn here as a plan view. Now on this contour, any point within this curve represents combination of m and x and m and y, or mu, you can multiply it with phi to convert it into mux and muy, and a constant load. Any point here has one unique load and combinations of mx and my. So any point outside is unsafe, and any point inside or on this curve is actually the capacity or a safe point. So it is stated here that the resulting slide is actually a graph between mnx and mny. As I said, you can convert this nominal into ultimate by multiplying with phi at a constant load and scarred load contour. The values of movements mnx and mny are usually normalized with mnx naught and mny naught. What it means, if this is the point, it means mnx is 0. If this is the point, it means mny is 0. So it is mentioned here that if I normalize mnx with the corresponding movement capacity when only ey is present, that is mnx naught, and normalizing m and y with m and y naught when only ex is present, it will present like this, that mnx divided by mnx naught, it will become dimensionless ratio without any unit, mny over mny naught. So it is also, in this method, of the following form is passed through the failure line of a load contour, and this equation also actually represents a curve. For example, it has the first component with exponent alpha 1, second component with exponent alpha 2. If alpha 1 and alpha 2 are 1, it means it will be like this. If I take alpha greater than 1, I will have such curves, and alpha 1 means I will have a triangular load contour, triangular geometry, and the most conservative in case of the capacity, because the area covered will be less. It is stated here that the constant exponents alpha 1 and alpha 2 depends on the column geometry, reinforcement arrangement, materials characteristics, their stress strain relationships, concrete covers, confinement of the column, and generally, to simplify this equation, alpha 1 and alpha 2 are considered constant, and only one single alpha is considered as exponent. And furthermore, alpha recommended for square and rectangular column is between 1.5 to 1.55, and the lower value of alpha is more conservative. As I said, if you and the surface will, the edge of that surface will become, edge of that curve will become linear, edge of that slice. And a value of alpha 1.5 is reasonably accurate for most square and rectangular sections having uniformly distributed reinforcement. So there are suggestions here for your help, that if you want to select alpha and you want to be safe, first suggestion is select a lower alpha. Second suggestion is in between 1.5 to 1.55 you may finally get the alpha value based on more exact analysis. And the value of alpha 1.5 is reasonably good for most of the square and rectangular sections with steel uniformly placed on four faces. If you are not interested in following these direct recommendations, then in literature you will get some research based equations. One out of them is alpha related with log of beta. This relation requires beta calculation, and beta is actually a factor which is given in design charts. The pages, reference pages are also given, and in PCA Portland Cement Association notes on ACI 2002 and 2008 and onward publications, publish them against the values of ultimate demand on the column divided by axial capacity of the column and reinforcement index. What reinforcement index is, it is the total reinforcement ratio in the column, and these charts are available for various bar arrangements. If you want to get beta of your column, you need to first decide the reinforcement arrangement, and then you will consult the design aids and get beta from them. After getting beta, use this equation, and finally it is quite possible you get alpha 1.1, as it is suggested that for square and rectangular columns you may normally fall in this range. and lower value of alpha is more conservative. So the charts are available with larger to shorter sides of the column 4. So it means one side of the column is 300, other side is 1200. So quite rectangular with large aspect ratio. FC prime 12 to 41. So quite huge range of FC prime is available and on. So some textbooks also provide the tables of beta for application in load contour method. We will solve one problem and let's see what alpha we select for that problem. So this is a brief introduction about 4 approximate methods. As I said earlier, more exact is go for strain compatibility method, draw the interaction surface, iterate with different neutral axis depth and orientation of neutral axis and get multiple points, generate the surface and then design your column. Otherwise, you need to refer to these approximate methods which have certain limitations, and those limitations are important in order to get safe design. You need to consider those limitations. So here I will stop my lecture for 5 minutes break, and then we can continue. After break, I need to stop the recording as well. So I will get 2 files which I will later on upload. So this load contour method details are also given in book by Nilsson. So McGregor and Z.A. Siddiqui book have these methods summarized, but I think more comprehensive information on these approximate methods is available in book by Nilsson. For those students who are interested in deeper understanding of the development of these approximate equations, their mathematics behind these equations, may review that article in book by Nilsson.